Let's talk about Bronco Mendenhall going to New Mexico. And we like talking Mountain West football, all right, more than some other shows do. So uh yeah, you're gonna have to enjoy it because we enjoy it, right? And what does this mean? Bronco Mendenhall, I think initially people really like the hire. And I think we can go into depth and we can talk about how I like this hire probably even more than your surface level uh college football analysts, your surface level college football fans, then they even like him. And they like him a lot. All right. Now, what are the New Mexico Lobos? Like what does that program look like? Okay. Well, they haven't been to a bowl game in what, like 7 years, right? I mean, right? In this millennium, they have had 15 NFL draft picks. So not a lot. Okay. And 9 bowl game appearances this millennium, which is more, which is actually 3 times the amount Indiana has had, by the way. We just talked about Indiana, which is pretty funny. But most of those NFL draft picks and most of those bowl game appearances came under one tenure, and that was the Rocky Long tenure. Yup, Rocky freaking Long. Okay. If you remember, okay, like, look, everyone wants to talk about Charlie Strong's 335. He was at South Carolina and they turned that team around, whatever. No, like, if you want to talk about the inventor of the 335, Rocky Long was right in the forefront in the 90s when the 335 was becoming a thing. Like, he was like the guy, right? He goes to New Mexico, what, in 98, whatever. Guess who was his defensive coordinator that year, helping him implement his 335 defense into the New Mexico program? That's right. It was Bronco friggin' Mendenhall. Okay. Bronco Mendenhall. And so during Rocky Long's tenure, right, we talked about 15 NFL draft picks in this millennium. Rocky Long, during his tenure in this millennium, 10. 10 of those 15, including Brian Urlacher, by the way. You guys forgot about that. So, and then of those 9 bowl games this millennium, 7 of them came during the Rocky Long tenure, right? And then we know Rocky Long went on to go coach San Diego State, and he did a pretty good job there. Uh, but I like Bronco Mendenhall. I like Bronco Mendenhall, right? We know he coached at BYU. He also coached at Virginia. Didn't work out at Virginia. All right. Oh, well. Okay. That does not mean it can't work out west with New Mexico. He did a good job at BYU, I thought. So I like this hire, man. I like this hire a lot. So do you got any thoughts initially on it before we start to dive even more into this?
I think this is fantastic. Not only is he just such his resume is awesome, like it's really, really awesome. He fits so well. Not only is he familiar with New Mexico, right? But he's also super familiar with the Mountain West. I remember him at BYU before they were independent, they were in the Mountain West, right? He's got a couple conference championships in there. Mountain West Coach of the Year in 2006, right? They were 39-9 in the Mountain West with BYU. I get it. A little bit more resources there than you have in New Mexico, but he knows how to win, right? He's tremendous. And also he loves the outdoors. He loves the West Coast. Most of his success and like his coaching career, apart from Virginia, which we'll get into, his most recent stop at Virginia, he was on the West Coast. Right? He's got ties everywhere, recruiting, transfer, coaching, you name it. Like he is awesome. And they're actually paying him pretty darn well. He's the most highest paid coach in New Mexico's history. I think $1.2 million. Pretty nice payday for him and his family. And that's pretty significant if you understand the Mountain West and whatnot. It's awesome. I mean, they have a lot of transfers going out, which is to be expected. But at the same time, like it's not a great football team to begin with. Like how many of those guys are kind of replaceable, if that makes sense. Now you probably don't have the replacements on your roster to begin with. So you're gonna do a lot of overhaul, a lot of churning out, developing these guys, that getting the most out of these players. But I trust Bronco Mendenhall to be able to do that. That makes sense. They've also you talked about we'll get into expectations later on, right? But I'll give you a preview. Like mine's making a bowl game, right? And you talked about that. They made like
Really?
two. They won two bowl.
That's the
No, like
expectation?
well, okay. For me, for Bronco Mendenhall, it will be like well. Here's why he's made 16 of his 17 seasons as a head coach. They've gone to a bowl game. That is incredibly impressive. Incredibly impressive. And like, I don't think it's crazy to think that like the Sun Belt had 10 teams going this year or whatever it was, 12 teams, right? And bowl game, like the Mountain West, if they schedule right and whatnot. Obviously, the addition of Washington State and Oregon State in your conference schedule does not help you a ton. But at the same time, like you should be around that 5 to 7 range window, right? I think when by the time Bronco Mendenhall gets this thing humming up, like what like you talked about Rocky Long, like this is you can go to a bowl game pretty consistently, like they did in those early 2000s. They
Maybe.
went to one.
For expectations, I'll
They went to
say
one 5 out of 6
maybe.
years. 5 out of 6 years they were doing that
With
there
Rocky
with
Long,
Rocky.
it was a different Mountain West for sure. But here's what I'll say. And I know there's gonna be a lot of New Mexico fans out there that are, I'll say, younger New Mexico fans, and we're like, we did the Rocky Long thing, right? Because if you remember, Rocky Long was the defense coordinator at Syracuse this past year. The previous years, 3 years before that, they actually rehired him, right? Danny Gonzalez brought Rocky Long back to New Mexico to be the defense coordinator there to fix that defense. And like we still didn't win games. We still didn't win. It wasn't because of the defense. Like the defense improved year over year. Now it wasn't a top half defense. I get it, right? But it improved year over year since he got there. The 3 years before Rocky Long was at the defensive coordinator spot there, 96th in scoring defense, 114th in scoring defense, 125th in scoring defense. Then when he got there, his first year, 89, immediate improvement, then 86th, and then 61st in the country in scoring defense. And then he leaves, and they plummet to 126th in scoring defense, the worst in the last, what, 7 or 8 years. Danny Gonzalez gets fired. Enter Bronco Mendenhall. So I think Bronco Mendenhall's defense can work there. I think it's really going to depend. Like, I don't know. Like, to say like a bowl game is the expectation year over year, I think it's difficult given the history of this program. But you should not be winning less than 4 games per year. Like
Yes, what
and New Mexico, when they made those bowl games, like it wasn't because they were going 9-3, right? It was because they were going 6-6 and 7-5. I don't think how many they had, maybe 1 8-win season with Rocky Long when he was there. Like the expectation should not be necessarily every year to make a bowl game, right? Like it really shouldn't be, which is, I know, I'm sorry, New Mexico fans, that you have to hear this, but look, that's the reality for some Power Five schools, right? Indiana, that's the reality, right? Mississippi State, and maybe the new SEC, that might be an expectation to not make bowl games. And so I don't know, as a fan, you might get a year or two where Bronco Mendenhall steps up big time and they have a chance to win the Mountain West. And it'd be crazy if he did. I'd say that would be unbelievable. I do think Bronco Mendenhall can exceed expectations, right? My expectations being, 4 to 6 wins every year. I think he can exceed those expectations in a lot of years. So because of fit and because whether or not I think he can exceed expectations, this is the third coach today. I'm going to give an A- to this hire. I really like this hire. So those are my expectations. I'll let you talk about your expectations and what your grade is for this hire.
Yeah, okay, I'll say my expectations here, and it's gonna take a while, okay? And I urge New Mexico fans and New Mexico, more so the administration, to give him some time, right? This is not a good roster right now. It's going to take a couple years for them to be able to go to a bowl game. That's what I think, right? And the reality of your program is that you talk about take the checks, take the losses. Like you're going to schedule these out of conference opponents to get a big payday, right? Next year, you're going at Arizona, you're going at Auburn. Like, good luck to you in those games. Obviously, you love to win them. You see what New Mexico State did to Auburn last year. So who knows if that can happen to you guys? But like the reality is you're not expecting to win those games, okay? And so you gotta go 4 wins, 5 wins in the Mountain West. And to be at the upper half of the Mountain West is pretty tough to do in terms of you have programs with better resources than you, like Boise State, San Diego State, San Jose State's humming right now, Fresno State, Air Force when they're playing well. I throw Utah State in there a little bit. And next year, your schedule is kind of brutal. You play all those guys, right? And Wyoming's got a new coach, but tough to win in Laramie as well. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna give this an actual A because I think this is a slam dunk hire. If let me tell you, if like Tulane or Syracuse even. I would like if they hired Bronco Mendenhall, I'd be like, this is awesome. That's a good hire. I would probably give those a B plus, right? Because I believe he could have, met those expectations and maybe every couple of years elevating them to another one. I think Bronco Mendenhall, once he gets his home and can consistently exceed these expectations, and not only do you get the benefit of a guy like he stays where he is like for a while. Like he didn't get fired from Virginia, like kind of got pushed out, but he also kind of like left on his own because he retired. And he's like, you know what, I miss football again. I'm gonna go back to it. He loves the Mountain West. He loves the Southwest. He loves the Southwest. And I think if he starts humming here, I don't think he'll be lured by another job to leave. And like again, so that's part of it too, where like not only is this a 4 year thing, but this is a 15-year thing. He was at BYU for 17 years, having a ton of success, and could have left for multiple jobs in that tenure, and he didn't. Right. So that's why I think the beauty of this hire is like he's gonna meet him consistently. He's gonna exceed him consistently once he gets humming, and then he can also stay and continue to build on what he's doing, you know.
I agree. Hey guys, MD here. Just here to invite you to the Redshirt Sophomore College Football Bowl pool. The link to join will be in the description down below. The winner, what do they get? A chance to be a guest on the Redshirt Sophomore podcast, of course. But to qualify for that, you got to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. So make sure you click that subscribe button down below. When you sign up, all you got to do is just pick a team, right? See here at Miami, Ohio versus App State. This example selected Miami, and they have 12 confidence points on it. I'm going to rate these games 1 to 43, and it's going to be a blast. I can't wait to have you guys on. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Thank you.